going to end up, and I guess let's just find out.
Not really too much of a surprise. Pool Plato, some Tangos. They know all about Fan in the Heroes of the Dorm. Illidan is going to be the first one out.
Fan has so many scary heroes that he can play, though. You can take away the Illidan, sure, but the Zeratul is still there. And we even saw the Arthas yesterday, like you were mentioning, so he's very, very skilled on those melee heroes.
Following that up is going to be a Sylvanas ban. Now, for one of the most common picks, do you guys agree that this is maybe someone that's strong enough that warrants a first ban, or?
Well, remember how I said you shouldn't take Cloud9 Vortex to Dragonshire, and we're going to Dragonshire?
So this is like them basically knocking down things that could possibly stop them on Dragonshire.
Yeah, Cloud9 Vortex getting rid of the Sylvanas just means I think that they're going to want to just be more and more aggressive. They don't want to have any chance of her just off to her own devices kind of taking that siege damage. They're going to just want to try to wipe and wipe and wipe.
Okay, so Pool Plato, some Tangos, they are looking to pick up the Kael'thas early, playing a little bit more towards the late game. He is a hero that gets quite a bit stronger, especially when you grab the Flamethrower talent at 13, and of course the Ignite at 16 allows him to just sit safely in that backline and throw down that damage.
And there it is, Nathanius.
Oh boy, that Johanna Zeratul pick. I mean, you've got combos that you're going to be busting out, and I think it also come very important to see what the supports end up being for Cloud9 Vortex to make that Zeratul even more scary moving forward.
Well, if there's not going to be a ban or a counter pick on an Uther, it's very likely that we're going to see it there for Vortex. And Tazza will come out now with that Oracle for his trait that he can activate. It will keep a lot of information control into the hands of Pool Plato, some Tangos. Hopefully they might be able to find out Fan. But Fan knows exactly how to play around that. And I like this, the double mages for Pool Plato, some Tangos.
That could leave them a little bit sort of vulnerable in the backline. So they're going to have to try to round out their draft with some safety picks a little bit later. Cloud9 looking to ban out Uther.
It's not something I would have expected, considering they have the first pick coming out of the double bans.
This is a good point. Very, very good point. Following that up, we do have the Abathur ban. We talked about that. That is something we expected. But still, Cloud9 Vortex, they have set themselves up with the early Johanna pick. Maybe they're looking to also scoop up the Azmodan. Not the strongest of Azmodan maps, but they could still make it work. So something we'll have to pay attention to. Vortex running out of this, they are going to immediately scoop up the Brightwing.
I mean, it makes sense. You were looking at the supports. I do like that you brought up the getting the first pick out of the double ban, and now moving on to Azmodan, we could see those big globes coming in.
Vortex set themselves up so that they could get either Abathur or Azmodan, depending on what Pool Plato some Tangos ban. I really like how they picked the Johanna early first to set themselves up to get one or the other, and I think they're comfortable with both.
Now for the counter, it's going to be Mirrored, and he's going to be trying to shake up and disrupt those enemy combos, and once more, Malfurion coming into the fray, and I'm not entirely too sure Malfurion by himself could have done this, but they do have a Tazza there from that earlier pick, so between the shields and the heals, they're really going to try to look to negate a lot of the burst and a lot of that steady damage. But there's an interesting pick.
That is something I wasn't totally expecting to see. Of course, it is Tychus. Let's take a little bit of a closer look at Tychus's abilities. Of course, he does have that melting point grenade at level 4. Something that is, of course, it attaches onto his frag grenade. That's a nice talent you can pick up, and it does so much wave clear. So that's something that they might be looking to strategize a little bit. Also, you have to mention the Draken Laser Drill seems to be the common heroic pickup, and it does so much zoning and area control. Just throw that laser down, target it onto an enemy hero, and they basically have to leave that zone because it is just such a powerful ability.
That's cool. We didn't see a crazy amount of Tychus yesterday, but overall, when you look at the compositions that the team set up with the double mage and the Malfurions, that sustain that tranquility in the late game, do we like their setups for taking big battles against Vortex?
Well, the only reason I think the Tychus are going to work here is because of Johanna. So Johanna's going to have that condemn, is going to have the big control factor in that fight. And the big strength of Tychus is that he can walk and attack at the same time. So I think that's going to be the massive part here as we jump into game.
Now we'll have to see how exactly the teams are going to approach this. Of course, we can see on the right side, we have Cloud9 Vortex featuring Syracuse on Azmodan, Zixz on Brightwing, Tazza on Johanna, Bobby Hankhale on Tychus, and Fan on Zeratul.
Yep, so Vortex, again, this is their favorite map. This is really going to be the big game changer for the first game of the day. Will Pool Plato some Tangos here on the left? Bkid, Prismatic, King Plato, Mookiez, and of course Apauloh up there. Can they actually take these guys on, one of the big North American Titans, on their favorite map?
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. One of the things that seemed to be a trend on this this battleground in particular yesterday is, those earlier Dragon Knights weren't as impactful as trying to get the early control, and already everybody basically meeting in the center position trying to get maybe perhaps a really quick takedown on either side.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you do on this map. You go into the middle, you got to look to the reactions of your opponents, but say, hey, you're all together, somebody overextends a little bit, you could easily get that first takedown of the game, but now that that's going to get a little bit more out of their system. I don't think this Johanna is actually going to drop. She's just way too unstoppable with that Iron Skin. But you can see into the top one, and now it's going to be the ping pong back and forth, at least for now here from Pool Platos, as they go from mid to bottom as a 4-stack.
Yeah, and that's the slight risk that you can take by not getting that middle lane experience. So, but as they start to spread themselves out a little bit more, and already throwing these globes of annihilation across the lanes, it's about as these shrines activate. We saw the early Dragon Knights weren't quite as effective because they just didn't have the strength to actually go through most of the team and bring down the forts. So how much do you think that factors into this starting game? Is the focus really that crazy on trying to get the shrines very quickly?
It's likely not going to be. Already you can see both shrines going to go over to Vortex, but it's all right now about catering to Syracuse. His early game needs a lot of attention, and this is the big Johanna Asmodan synergy that we've been seeing a lot. Johanna takes Knight, takes Pawn, and just does absolutely insane amounts of damage to the creep waves, bring them all together, and that's just going to set up here for Syracuse to finish them off. So early game, I think they're just going to kind of play musical shrines a little bit, go back and forth. Nobody's really going to be able to solidify a bit of a dragon lead for a bit, but as time goes on, Syracuse is playing for that late game.
Yeah, especially as they level up and that the Dragon Knight gets stronger, as Apauloh does ask for a pause. But I mean, you bring up a great point when you talk about having to cater to Syracuse as the game progresses forward, because when you're playing Asmodan, you want to get stacks on that Globe of Annihilation from picking off those minion waves, and we've seen some pretty good shots from downtown on Asmodans yesterday once they're able to get those stacks up to 300 plus especially.
Now, the first time I saw the stacking strategy from the Asmodan was, well, it goes back a little bit ways back, but in the round of 128, I got to cover Team Cognitive, who unfortunately didn't make it to the top 8, but this is what they ran. They ran an entire stack, and they got max stacks in 13 minutes. That's 500 extra damage on every Globe of Annihilation, and it scales just up and up and up, but 13 minutes is not a long time, Nathanias. It was really impressive. Everyone else has kind of caught on to that, and we've seen a lot of Asmodan in these last few days.
Yeah, it's so scary because you get into those situations where we've seen you have all of the heroics unlocked, especially by that point, and the teams are moving around so much. And as nice as things like promote can be, you still have the option, of course, for General of Hell to help push those lanes. But then you throw your Globe of Annihilation, and you can very easily clear a whole wave without having to worry about whether or not they're going to be pushing into your fortifications while you move forward as as a 5-stack of bringing everybody together.
So what we're going to see is level 1 is the Taste for Blood. That's the stacking damage. Level 4 is going to be the Asmodan General of Hell, which is the promote. It's a global promote. It's even stronger than just normal promote. And that's something we didn't really talk about a lot as well. Asmodan and Brightwing are likely to be running double promote on this map. Not only can Brightwing phase shift in and around and use promote and then join a fight, but at the same time, during a fight, Asmodan can just go promote another lane. It's going to be a lot of default push, and everything that minion kills, even if there's no one around it, counts as experience for the team.
Yeah, and that's always nice to be able to get that without having to worry about whether you have someone there to soak that experience. Is it likely that we see on the other side for Tazza to pick up that promote even without the double promote possibility?
It's extremely likely because how do you fight one promote? Well, usually you get another one out there as well. And the level 4 choices for Tazza, the only other one that would really kind of come to mind at this point is Mental Acuity, because that will reduce the cooldown on the trait for Oracle, which will keep us with a lot more information for tracking Zeratul, played out by Fan. And if you know Fan and you know Zeratul, it's a deadly combination. You want to keep tabs on him.
When you say it like that, it's like, yeah, having that better cooldown on Oracle is really important. The vision is so nice with 3 lanes, so many opportunities to get jumped moving between them. There's a lot of scary things that go bump in the bushes, to say the least.
I gotta use that one myself. Bump in the bushes. I like that, sir. Yeah, but you're totally right. You can actually fit an entire party in a bush, and well, you're just not gonna have a good time if you face check that one, my friend.
And as you can see, we are back in. Just a small thing got resolved pretty quickly. So looking at this, it's basically what we were just discussing, right? Asmodan trying to get those stacks. Everybody is spread out well enough to get those big experience soaks. Not really so much for a big brawl just yet at this early phase of the game.
No, and we're not going to see a lot of aggression here from Cloud9, but you will see it from Pool Plato because they're looking for that takedown, and they actually now have 2 to their name going back and forth. So again, level 4 towns did come in. We have double promotes as well as that melting point. We were looking at a little bit earlier there with Kubi, and this is just going to be, again, this will help augment the early game, help them with a little bit of counter push. And Pool Platos, they want to get some of these takedowns, and they're really going for it. They find Fan, they're going to be locking him down. The dwarf toss in, and Bkid is just going to toss him him over those trees. Quite the strength on the Dwarven Warrior, and it looks like they will clean up here with Tazza, or will they? Johanna showing her strength.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that's hard to do, it's kill Johannas that are on the retreat. But 3 takedowns so far to start this off. Not a monstrous EXP lead, but we can see that they're starting to fill that bar quite a bit faster as everybody's all the way back home.
Yeah, they do have the Tassler just holding fort top as well, and that's going to be a promote, which is great against the Tychus because he has to spend so much more time taking down that creep wave. He does have the melting point though as well, so it's going to be a lot of pressure on Apauloh unless he gets any kind of help out there. But also, a lot of these takedowns haven't been solo lane takedowns, so even getting a few of those into their pocket, there's no denial of soak that has gone up against Vortex, which is why the experience is still very much the same.
Yeah, not any massive advantages it would seem to be gained so far. I guess the biggest things that we'd be looking at are whether or not Azmodan is going to be slowed down in his accrual of those stacks for his Globe of Annihilation, but some siege camps going to be taken now, and nothing really crazy going on just yet.
Well, as I said, you're likely not to see big aggression from Vortex, at least until level 10. That's when Blackpool kicks in. That's when the Zeratul with the Void Prison. Then we're going to be looking for that setup combo. Void Prison, Condemn. It all comes together very nicely for Azmodan Globes to be making a huge difference. But, well, all right, they learned from the mistakes last time. PPST will actually take down Johanna this time, and that's a 4 takedown lead so far. A little bit more of an experience lead has now come up. But you're right, every time they take down Johanna, every time they take down a roaming Zeratul, they are stopping those globes.
Yeah, and that makes it so frustrating. And they managed to catch him up top as well. Zeratul getting snapped up once again. This actually gives him an opportunity to get control of the northern tower. The southern tower remaining neutral as of now, but Kael'thas makes his move in on it at the same time as they continue to push this wave in the north end. And Brightwing's not going to be able to stop 3 of these on his own.
He does have promote ready to go, but you're right. With that crowd control coming in there, you can already see Zixz and the body blocks as well. Bkid just making sure that the Brightwing has nowhere to go. It will solidify a 6 takedown lead. Level 9, now you're starting to see it accrue a lot more because there was no Brightwing up there. They took down Fan again. Problem, though, is these other lanes are starting to really show some heavy siege damage.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you're starting to see where the boosts and those promotes really kicking in, but getting to that heroic faster could give Plato some Tangos a really strong advantage if they're able to force an engagement or a fight over one of these towers, or even possibly the Dragon Knight, which will be much stronger now than if they had gotten it at the start of the game. So they really have to be careful at Cloud9 Vortex about how they take this fight, because now the heroics are coming out. Yeah,
level 10 to 9, that's a big advantage for Plato some Tango. I really highly expect to see some big aggression into one of these lanes so that they can try to maneuver for a Dragon Knight. They have a window of opportunity where they're much more powerful than their opponents, and it's really up to them to kind of make sure that they use that to their advantage. So far, they're actually getting pushed into the top. There's no team support as of yet coming in, but here comes the cavalry.
I mean, they've taken a lot of fortification damage, but they've had reasonable trades in the actual fight. Still a bit risky moving up here with Apauloh having quite a bit low on health, but going in for the fight, actually stunning that Tychus, pulling him in. Now there's the Condemn on Johanna to bring everybody nice and close together, but doesn't look like there's any follow-up for an actual combo play on this fight.
But bottom lane, the Song of Fire and Ice actually did take down Azmodan, and as I said, they need to get aggressive. They need to still use this advantage. Both shrines are going to go blue. This is a big opportunity for Tangos to try to grab that dragon, but we did just hit 10 here from Vortex. They're just going to stall out as long as they can, wait for Azmodan to come back in, and look at that Azmodan damage so far. He comes back in. He has not really been able to stack as much as he wants, but he's at 114 bonus.
Yeah, it's something, and at the very least, at this point, if they do get into a big fight, once you get those, those heroic talents unlocked, and we can see the Blackpool to give that damage boost, it's about getting the perfect engagement set up, even with the EXP deficit, going for the engagements. We saw the plays make really nice comeback yesterday just by focusing on the actual team fights, but Tychus gets caught trying to retreat out of the center lane.
It was a beautiful play from Bkid. He was very patient about it. You saw Bobby Hankeo, he was serpentining. He was trying to avoid out the next skill shot of that Dwarven Hammer, but it was not enough. When you're that close, it's really hard to dodge a point-blank hammer, and another takedown. So far, Cloud9 Vortex has been pretty much on the back foot from the get-go.
Yeah, 8 takedowns to start this game, really strong, with none being picked up by Cloud9 Vortex at all. Only thing that's gone in their favor, I guess, is that these opportunities haven't been able to be seized for using the Dragon Knight.
And so far, the Asmodean hasn't really worked out to the favor yet. It's still a young game, 8 minutes in. That could change in the blink of an eye. We got Blackpool now for him as well. You're going to start seeing his farm go up and up and up with that 75% extra damage. And you guys talked about this a little bit earlier. We could have actually seen that drill. We're going to see it in Odin. I suspect you're probably going to see it later on in a fight because already into the bottom lane, he's way up top. But Bkid, that's going to be the avatar. He's going to jump in. Stuns coming out for days on top of Johanna, and she is going to be the one to drop. Syracuse with the orb doesn't hit anything, and Fan, he's even going to have to retreat out of this one as well. But now with that one takedown, they got to rush to this top because there's going to be positioning here for Mookiez to become that dragon. But will it hold? We do got Apauloh on the point, but he's not going to last forever. Can Bkid actually solidify that? It will be the Tazza sacrifice, and here's our first dragon.
I mean, they get him, but the tower, you know, it's up just long enough for Bkid to grab that Dragon Knight. Of course, very effective against taking down these fortifications, especially in a situation where, as you pointed out, we're going to have a little bit more combat-oriented for straight-up fights with Tangos going for that Odin heroic ability as well.
Yeah, but we're not going to quite see it yet. He is still very much in that top lane. He's trying to counter push as much as he can. Now, the problem is that he's not on defense, but he is on the offense. So he is still continuing to soak for his team. He's putting pressure up there. And the rest of the team so far is doing well with Bkid on that dragon. So far, not a huge amount of damage has come out of this. A few towers. Looks like they're going to solidify another one down here. You got to be very careful for those laser hands coming out there from Syracuse, because that will stack up damage over time, and that could really actually start chunking down that dragon.
Yeah, we've seen it even in a few of the games yesterday where that Asmodean was able to do a great job of neutralizing the effectiveness of the Dragon Knight, and now everyone's roaming around a little bit more. Still just Tazza and Tangos in the top lane. Jaina showing up for a bit of support, but most of Cloud9 Vortex is focusing on the bottom side.
There has been a lot of focus on the bottom because that is where we have 3 of our 5 mercenary camps. Into the top, it has kind of been a few duels, a few ambushes coming in, but now we're also going to be looking at these bruisers, and both teams basically doing them here at the same time. So they got to wait for those shrines to come up, and when the shrine is down, and this is pretty much a rule for every battleground as we go forward, when the objective is down, you got to look at those other points on the map. They are there for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, getting them to help push forward the lanes, but also get the experience for knocking them down is always useful. And eventually, as you knock down these fortifications, creating space to roam around and catch people off guard, catch them out of position, and secure other advantages by being able to initiate those team fights in scenarios that will favor your team.
All right, so taking a quick look at some of the power spikes coming in, because the level 13 talent tier has come and gone. Plato, some Tangos is going to be looking at 16 coming up. There is something to show here. Mirrodin is feeling fantastic about this match. They got that level lead and the dwarf jumps, the hammers. He has been part of a lot of these fights. It looks like Asman's going to be dropping very quickly, and yeah, the Song of Fire and Ice is going to have his number. But at level 13, we actually took the dueling talent for the Mirrodin, where he does 300% extra damage if he catches one target in his Thunderburn. So if there's somebody struggling at the end of this fight, he can dwarf jump to them and then just really start applying some pain.
Yeah, it's a really, really great way to isolate somebody, especially if you catch them out of guard on their own. And as you mentioned, being able to combine that water elemental with the Phoenix is just a massive amount of area of effect damage that you can inflict upon the enemy team, especially when you couple it with anything that gets them all close together.
Yeah, so the slow damage, the chill damage adds up significantly nice, well for the Jaina. And then the fire, because you can't really escape the fire, it just kind of burns you to a crisp. It's a really patented, tried and true combo ever since Kael'thas was released to the game. And a lot of people do scramble for the Jaina just because she has that insane burst, but you put it with the Kael'thas, and you know, you got a bit of a squishy team, but so far, Vortex, they've only been able to put one takedown on the board, and that is not boding well for them.
Yeah, I have to agree. That was one of the more interesting things, is that despite how squishy they are, they've just been managing to make perfect use of that combination of having Kael'thas and Jaina on the same team, and of course more difficult to escape those area of effect spells with the chill, slowing you down every single time Jaina gets a hit on you.
And at the same time, we're going to be looking at the top. The shrines are now back up. Here comes Bkid to the rescue with the for that Apauloh, and Tazza's not actually going to be able to condemn that either. But wow, it's Cloud9. He's going to put all 5 teammates into this top lane. They're really looking to solidify a takedown on top of Apauloh, and so far they're not going to get rewarded. I think they've wasted a little bit too much time. I think they're overextended here, Nathaniel.
Yeah, at this point, everybody else for Plato, some Tangos has been able to rotate over. The Water Elemental has been cast. The Phoenix not hitting the entire enemy team throughout the duration of it, but they'll at the very least be able to push them back behind this fortification. It seems most of them should be able to escape. No dives over the wall. Not now.
Yeah, there's that big Tychus right there, the infested Tychus skin, one of the legendary skins out there. It absolutely looks fantastic when he pops into that Odin form.
That infested Thor.
I know, right?
That looks pretty
That's
pretty
something
scary.
even you don't get to see in StarCraft.
No, thankfully.
But the Asmodee and Dunks wasn't enough, and the defensive Void Prison, that's really why we didn't see any takedowns right there. Fan and that Void Prison caught 3 team members of Pool Plato, some Tangos in it, and that is really what saved their bacon in that fight. But still, the big story here is that they're very much on the defensive. You see top is getting pushed, bottom is about to become the second shrine, and that means that Kael'thas sitting there pretty in the middle is about to become a dragon.
Yeah, I mean, the teams are even as far as the talents go, but Pool Plato some Tangos is much closer to getting to 18 and subsequently closer and closer to those Storm talents and being able to get this Dragon Knight at this phase. That EXP is going to rack up even faster as they use it to knock down these fortifications and make their way towards the keeps.
All right, so the level 16 talents are here from both sides. Not a lot of blood for bloods. Not a lot of characters here were able to take them, and so we only got that one. That's not really going to be helping Vortex a lot, because even in this fight, oh, Bobby Hankill, he's going to drop there on that Tychus. The axe of that dragon just hits way too hard at the 14-minute mark for these guys to kind of handle. And with that fight kind of in the bag, you already see the dragon. He's going to be marching down top. The rest of the team in mid, they're going to solidify 2 forts at least on this.
Yeah, it's not a fun place to be this late into the game. You have Tychus being out of commission for quite some time, just punts away. Fan says, yeah, I'm going to take down this fort. I'm not really concerned about you at the moment, while everybody else from Pool Plato some Tangos continues to put pressure on this center lane. And even the fort there, you have a turret that doesn't have any ammunition, barely doing anything to actually stop this attack.
And we still have so many hit points left here on Prismatic. He's just going to come right into this. That signals the advance, and as I said, at least 2 forts are going to drop. They did pick up a few towers, and this is starting to get scary for Vortex, because Pool Plato some Tangos is going 19 on to 20, and as you said, Storm talents are a big deal.
Yeah, all those forts that they were able to knock down just racked up that experience so quickly, and it's almost they kind of like nice for them that, well, at least they're not trying to take aggressively their camp, so they're able to come up. Cloud9 Vortex can get their own bruiser camp, can go for their siege camp as well, but still a very nice position to be in for Pool Plato Tangos. They're so close to hitting 20 now.
Yep, it's going to be, they're likely just to kind of bide their time a little bit, wait for 20. They have a 2 and a bit level advantage when that does actually occur, which means they have a big window of opportunity here to try to close out that game. Wouldn't be surprised to see at 20, they're going to try to take a fight, but time it out so they get an uncontested dragon, and then they're going to start marching for some of these keeps.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big moment to make that play, of course, once they can secure the next dragon and utilize that to knock down the next wave of fortifications. They're just about to hit 20 as these siege camps push the bottom. Most of Pool Plato some Tangos is focused on the south side of the map. Pop's just looking to make sure they can clean up any of the camps in the center so that they can get as much of an advantage as humanly possible. And there is that level 20. The Storm talents are coming out for Pool Plato some Tangos.
All right, Twilight Archon is going to be coming into the fray. Malfurion with the Storm Shield, double bolt for Jaina and Kael'thas. It does make up their lack of mobility now having that instantaneous teleport, and Hardened Shield for Mirrodin. If he thought it was hard to take him down before, that shield is going to reduce all damage by 75% for 4 seconds. Good luck taking him down now, Vortex.
Yeah, having that with the Storm Shield is going to be very useful for keeping him alive and making him quite a nuisance if they get into a big straight-on engagement where all players are participating at once. Now, Fan is trying to go for a counter push at the top left side, but at the same time, all of Pool Plato some Tangos doesn't look like they can be stopped in the southeast position.
Well, they actually switched positions. You see, Brightwing actually did come down on top of Zeratul. He's going to look for those promotes, look for that push with the bruisers. It was all set up very nicely there by Fan on the Zeratul, and now Zixz is even going to be able to put up a shrine. Problem is, he doesn't have a teleport back, so Cloud9 Vortex, they can't get aggressive. They're very much on the defensive here. They're still down a whole level and a bit, and those Storm Towns, they're not willing to put themselves in harm's way to keep that keep. If it falls, it falls. At least we do have the counter pressure top, though, and that's very important for this experience game.
Yeah, especially considering that they aren't too far away from level 20 themselves at this point, getting their absolute best to at least tie up the Storm talents. Even if they're a level behind, being able to have access to that talent tree will be very useful for them to have more tools to utilize to actually try and take that big engagement that they do need at this point.
All right, so the blink forward there from Fan is going to bring Plato down to about half. Apauloh's not looking so good here either, and you know what? I think the stall here from Vortex is really starting to take its toll here on PPST, because that top, there's a big possibility here, Nathaniel, is that the first keep to go down will actually be Pool Plato's Tangos in that top from that Brightwing push.
I really like how you use the word stall. They know that they don't want to take that big fight where they risk losing and throwing the game, their opportunity. But now that they've hit 20, now they have their Storm Talents, goes in with the Condemn on Johanna. not going for the full-fledged attack just yet. A little bit of a running gun there from Tykes, but at this point, they're still just dancing around. They did lose the keep, so they have to be very careful with how they position themselves here.
And now there's nobody pushing out of the top, so it's a full-fledged team fight here, but Tykes way too far forward, goes up in the gravity lapse, it comes down as a corpse, but a great 5-man Void Prison right there from Fan will again stall out this aggression. Cloud9 Vortex have done it. They have level 20. Those storm talents are now coming in. Double shields, double blinks, and then a rewind there for Fan as well. You're going to be looking for that damage to come back out of it. And, you know, already 18.5 minutes. How long have these shrines been on the map, Nathanius? Everybody was way too focused.
In the beginning of that siege.
Exactly,
they got right outside the southeast keep, and it's been like, well, we're a little bit too busy trying to kill each other here in order to actually go for these towers. But I think it still comes down now how much of an impact does getting this Dragon Knight give to either side?
Well, let's try this again. At 19 minutes in, you're going to have a really good siege vehicle. It's not going to be the end game unless you have a good team wipe to go with it. But at the same time, I think that the game sense of Cloud9 Vortex has really kind of come into it because they stalled out, they counter pushed, they experience soaked in 2 lanes, and PPST, they kind of left that Dragon up there. I really do think that we've made a big mistake here from Pool Plato Tangos for leaving this so late, and that, however, from Syracuse was another big mistake because that minion did not do his master's bidding.
Yeah, he manages to get that Dragon Knight. Paul did a really good job of defending the northern towers. They tried to deny it, but Bkid's going to move forward now, waiting for the rest of Pool Plato Tangos to collapse on this position. Zeratul is just off to the bottom, perhaps looking to initiate with that Void Prism as they move in. Tykes activates the Odin, and have to see if they're really going to commit to trying to knock this wall down here.
Well, that's some big damage coming out. The stacks have actually gone into the favor there of Azmodan, but already into the backline. Johanna goes huge on top of that Kael'thas in the back. He has to bullet away, and with Bkid in this Drake, they don't have the dwarf control. It is the dwarf in there with Mirrodin. Bkid is not going to be able to contribute, you know, his normal tosses, his avatars, his stuns. All he can really do here is kick, and well, if you can't kick the unstoppable.
Yeah, he's still making a reasonable push into the keep, the setup. We haven't had any takedowns just yet here. The really good zoning, of course, from the Water Elemental combined with the Phoenix was able to buy a little bit of space as Zeratul was pushed back. But, you know, they grabbed the keep, they grabbed that bit of EXP. Both sides still remaining just that one level lead, but can they actually push in?
So see, that's what I'm saying. At 19 minutes in, unless you have a team wipe, this isn't going to be the end of the game. The Dragon is still really healthy, but there's 10 seconds left on him, so they can't go in for the core. And this is why I wanted to see this much earlier, because by now we would have had another Dragon spawn coming in, and that siege in the bottom, I really don't think it did them any favors. We're still favorable here for Pool Plato Tangos, but at this point, if they stall out again, this actually might be enough time for that Azmodan orbs to start maxing out and kicking in.
Yeah, considering that Cloud9 Vortex only has one fort at the moment and only had one takedown so far this game, they've really managed to make something of it. And in a situation where Pool Plato Tangos with 12 takedowns, holding still 5 of their forts, would seem to be that they're in a good position. But it really only takes one big, as you said, wipe. This late in the game, those death timers are going to be forever for both sides.
Yeah, 60 seconds plus. You can get a lot of work done in that time frame, Nathanius. And it's kind of crazy to think, you know, 21 minutes in, the levels are 22-21, but the kills are the takedowns as well. 12-1 going back and forth.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's absurdly lopsided, but it just goes to show that Cloud9 Vortex have made the most of this scenario, the most of this tough situation that they've been put in. Johanna looking for perhaps an opportunity to come in. There's the first globe thrown, just hitting Apauloh in some of the minion wave, but you know, not too close together as Pool Plato Tangos are not that vulnerable to the crowd control.
Now, I've been tracking some of the damages going back and forth, and big damage is going to be the name of the game right here. Another great defensive Void Prison. Kind of caught Tazza there in the mix as well, but it's enough time for Bobby Hankill to bring out that Odin. Bkid way there far into the back. He's starting to get shredded down, but it's not going to be enough to take him out before Johanna drops. She is now out of this fight. Zixz is now going to get pushed back, and I think it's going to be enough. Pool Plato Tangos should be able to push in here with the lack of that warrior. If they can take down Bobby Hankill, they can solidify this, but even without that death, it looks like they're going to be going for it.
Yeah, I mean, that core is starting to take a little bit of damage now. Pool Plato Tangos does retreat for the time being. They only picked up Johanna, which, you know, is a really, really important tool for the crowd control, for pulling them around. That condemn is so powerful, and of course the shield's done very useful in these scenarios as well, but they're not feeling confident enough to actually try to force it just yet.
So this is, again, a great stall from Vortex. They have stacked enough damage there from Azmodan. He's actually, I think, pretty much actually at the 500. He's hitting 1,500 damage orbs throughout the course of this, and that is the best stall tactic you can do, because Because when you landed on Jaina, when you landed on Kael'thas, you got to go into hyperdrive for those healings. He does have the actual maxed out 500 damage. He's had it, I think, for a few minutes now, but that damage has gone up and up and up, and it's too much really to handle and to just stand around. You got to get in, you got to get the damage done, and you got to get out. If you stick around, Azmodan will punish you.
And at this point, we have actually Bkid trying to come up here and secure this northern shrine, but all of Cloud9 Vortex is here to contest him as Johanna does start to make her way across the map as well. We have the Phoenix thrown out, but not really doing too much here for
Minions on the core. That's permanent damage. They're right through those shields. The Siege Giants are now bringing down that core to 68%. PST could actually just go right across the map, abandon the fight, and look for that win. But so far, they are not having that opportunity. Cloud9 is saying no. They're going for these fights. Another Void Prison, but Brightwing is going to pay the price. And now Tazza, half health, no healer on the back. Bobby hand kill, way too far forward. Where's the bolt? You gotta look for it. It's down. It doesn't have it. The Tychus is going to drop. Bkid now jumping forward. And during this entire fight, those Siege Minions, the catapults, they're starting to add up. 20%, 30%, 10 and more kills going the way here of Plato some Tangos. It looks like it will be enough, and this will be a win here momentarily as Syracuse will be able to clean up for a little bit, but he will not be able to stop the 5-man push.
MVP of all those team fights, that big push, the Siege Giants, getting that core down to 15% as Plato some Tangos shows up and finishes it off to secure a Game 1 victory in this best of 3 over Cloud9 Vortex.
They came out swinging. They didn't let up the pressure. That stall was a bit of a scary moment. I thought maybe that Vortex, with their game sense, that split push, they caught up. I was a little afraid, but by the end of it all, Azmodans were just not enough, Kubi.
Yes, there were a couple opportunities, like you mentioned. Once they got to those max damage stacks, we saw a lot of opportunities where they were able to just hit 3 or more members of Plato some Tangos just to get them to back up. That was very important. Maybe would have been the start of the comeback for Cloud9, but not the case. I really want to sort of point some attention to the counterplay that was available for Vortex, and really I think there was a lot of pressure on Zeratul to really get to that back line. And I gotta say, of course, we have to highlight Bkid right here. His positioning in terms of making sure that he's keeping tabs on Zeratul throughout these fights and making sure that he's punishing him, getting him to back up early is a big deal. So what we're going to see right here is that Zeratul ends up overextending. And what this means is that we do have the Johanna who's going to end up filing in just to put in some pressure with the Zeratul. What happens is Zeratul takes a lot of damage early, is forced to back out, and this leaves Johanna quite a bit overextended. We're going to see Bkid actually follow that up and then really get the takedown onto Johanna at this point forward. So we'll advance the replay and we can see exactly that. So they put a lot of focus onto Zeratul quite early in this fight. You can see he is forced to blink out immediately, and this leaves Johanna very overextended. Bkid ends up moving forward, gets the Storm Bolt, and ultimately the takedown. These are the types of plays that we needed to see for Plato some Tango to take this game.
There's a little bit of talk I noticed out there on some of our social media about how Bkid is punishing the overextension.
That's exactly it.
I think that's a great summary of exactly what that was, because Bkid was everywhere. He was in almost every single ambush early game. The stuns was enough. The body blocks were on point. The avatar in that yummy chocolate form, it just really added up to just a fantastic way to go for Plato.
You could say he had a sweet victory.
A sweet victory.
I
am out.
Very
good game. I will see you later.
I think it was very clear, as the way that they set themselves up, that the Kael'thas and the Jaina complemented each other so well when they got into those fights with all that area of effect damage, with those chills, and with that, like we said, these are elimination matches. We have a 1-0 lead now in this series for Plato some Tangos. They are on the verge of eliminating Cloud9 Vortex from the North America June Open. Would be a pretty big victory for them if they could pick up map number 2.
Wouldn't that be something, man? Wouldn't that be something? I cannot wait to see what we're going to do for Game 2, Kubi.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really going to be a breakout performance for this team if they are able to take out Cloud9 Vortex.
Yeah. And before we go to our commercial break to set up for the next game, of course, if you guys want to make the plays yourself here, you want to try out these awesome battlegrounds and your favorite heroes, you can download Heroes of the Storm for free. Sign up and play with your friends today. Go to heroesofthestorm.com to learn more. But we'll be right back after this short break with game number 2 between Plato some Tangos and Cloud9 Vortex.
Hearthstone on phones! Now you can do battle wherever you may go. Play it here or anywhere, just grab a phone and Hearthstone there. stones unfold.
Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. Stick it in your phone. Rated T for teen.
We will never be slaves, but we will be conquerors. World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor. Boost to level 90 instantly. Available now. Rated T for teen.
Come out, wherever you are.
Nuclear launch detected.
Heroes of the Storm. Get it free at playheroes.com. Rated T for teen.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Heroes of the Storm North America June Open. We just saw Plato some Tangos take a 1-0 lead on Dragonshire against Cloud9 Vortex.
You know, I ended up actually having to eat crow. I said you can't take on Vortex on Dragonshire, and what did Plato some Tangos do, Kubi?
They did it in convincing fashion. They took game number one for sure. I think we have a little bit of some highlights that we can bring up for some of these players. The first one, of course, is going to be Apauloh from Plato some Tango. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at this player.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some interesting plays. He made some really nice moves with that Tazza. Of course, Zeratul being a popular pick here from Boston, Massachusetts. As you said, part of the Boston Eagles Heroes of the Dorm team. You guys are a bit more familiar with him than I am.
Yep, they made it to the top 16, if memory does serve, and they put up a really good fight. They were the least predicted team to make it that far into that round. It was something like 4% of everyone just had faith in Boston. But I gotta say, after that game, I have faith in Apauloh.
I mean, being from the Northeast,
That's right. Yeah, he's from my neck of the woods. I like this guy.
Yeah, I have to definitely back him up on that one. And of course, we can take a look at a player from the other side, as we have a spotlight for Bobby Hank Hale from Cloud9 Vortex, who also played a pretty reasonable game, I'd say.
Yes, of course. Yeah, he's the captain of Cloud9 Vortex. Been leading this team for some time. We mentioned, of course, that he was on the BlizzCon 2014 champion team that was just Cloud9 at the time. There was no split teams at the time. But, of course, he's a very, very, very strong player that we've seen time and time again at the tops of the tournaments in the NAC.
And this guy, championships is this guy's name. Basketball championships, BlizzCon championships. He knows how to do guitar and keyboard. Such talent, man. But he's also on the ropes here, Nathanius.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how they adjust moving into the next map, which will be playing on the Battleground Tomb of the Spider Queen in this best of 3. We've seen a reasonable amount of this. That smaller map, a lot of aggressive plays.
All right, so Tomb of the Spider Queen, we've seen a heck of a lot of it, but 3 lanes, it's a bit of a smaller map, however. A lot of condensed movement, so you can easily get from 1 to 2 to 3. 4 mercenary camps, it's not the least out there, but it is a paltry number, and the big thing here, collect and turn in your gems. You kill your opponents, you kill the enemy creeps, you kill basically anything, and they'll drop you a shiny gem as a reward. You turn in the gems, and you get these guys pushing down all of your lanes at the same time. The Web Weavers are a very powerful siege push tool. So lots of fights, lots of aggression, lots of Azmodan, would you believe, this entire weekend, this entire event. You take out the core, you get yourself a win, and you get to thank this guy for all that effort.
This guy.
This guy.
It's really a person at that point. She's a really scary thing. But yeah, no, that's a very, very good point. And so we talked about Dragonshire being Vortex's most played map, but I say from their past tournament experience, this is their favorite map, and probably the map
everybody's favorite map at this point.
Win on the most. But they're a very aggressive team, Cloud9 Vortex is, and they really know how to draft for these types of strategies on this map. From the get-go, they have been super strong on this map.
And if this is one of your favorite maps, as it seems to be quite favorable for many of the teams, you can let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. Follow us at BlizzHeroes and use the hashtag HeroesWC. Let us know. Maybe we'll end up seeing that Kerrigan ban. I believe the draft is just about ready, so we'll be seeing that soon enough, as Azmodan and Kerrigan have been 2 of the heroes we've talked about a lot on this map, being able to utilize those small spaces and a lot of those length of sight blockers.
This is also a great map for Johanna.
Yes, of course. And if you pair that up with Azmodan as well, we talked about that a bit. Those are a great pair to have for that clear. But we are going to see Kael'thas as the first ban for Cloud9 Vortex.
So this was actually the first pick from Pool Plato some Tangos.
Yes,
I think it's the repeat Illidan ban from them, but the first pick, Kael'thas, was the last round. He did amazingly well. Like, a lot of damage by the end of it. Almost the MVP, I think, in damage overall.
Yeah, so removing that as a tool for the other team rather than just, okay, he's maybe really good on this map, you have to worry about that. And from that, we actually see Sylvanas will be played in this game. And then a first pick, Uther from Pool Plato some Tangos.
Come on, Kerrigan. Come on,
yeah,
Kerrigan.
that could be a very good setup. But let's talk about Uther's abilities a little bit more in detail. We've seen him time and time again this tournament, but not a hero that has been picked so early. And the real big ability that I want to call everyone's attention to is in the upper right. That's the Divine Shield. That's one of his heroics. We do see that more often than not, and it's an invulnerable cast, and it hits very, very quick to one of your allies, and it allows him to stay invulnerable for 3 seconds. So some of those dicier heroes that have to get into the thick of things, you mentioned Kerrigan, Jester, they need to be able to get in there to do the work, but they don't have the health pool to back it up. Divine Shield is a great tool to try to take down or get rid of some of that damage that might be thrown down onto Kerrigan.
I think Kerrigan is just my overall favorite pick on this map because it just complements her kit so well. We'll have to see if she actually does end up getting picked or banned. It's up to Cloud9 Vortex to kind of answer not only the Uther, but the Jaina. And again, we talked about that. A lot of people like to scramble for Jaina within those first few picks.
And Pool Plato Samtango had Jaina on the last battleground, so even if they can't get that combo with Kael'thas to combine the Water Elemental with the Phoenix, still a lot of damage that can be thrown down. And on the other side, Cloud9 Vortex takes their second and third picks for Tassadar and Johanna. You said you like Johanna on this map?
I love Johanna on this map.
And it could be paired up, but again, we're looking at the very similar situation as to what we saw last game during the draft. They set themselves up to put the fear in Pool Plato Samtangos. We're either going to take Abathur or we're going to take Azmodan. We're going to force you to ban one of the two. And I think that this could set themselves up to either have another Azmodan stacking strategy or just having Johanna with the Abathur hat being just completely unkillable.
So if you recall last time, we did actually have the Abathur ban in the second ban phase, but this time it's Brightwing. We're not going to be seeing the Fairy Dragon. We have seen a heck of a lot of her this weekend, and there goes the Kerrigan. My heart goes out to the Queen of Blades because she is not getting played today.
Yeah, I guess that fear of being utilized has provoked many a ban on Kerrigan on this map so far in the June Open.
I wonder if the Brightwing ban is to take away the second cleanse, and if that means that Pool Platos is going to be looking towards a very CC heavy style composition. We'll have to see how that rounds out. They do end up taking the Murden, and they take Azmodan away. Now they don't have the greatest of wave clear to help and assist Azmodan with that just yet. Of course, Jaina with the Blizzard, but it's nothing to the level that Johanna is, where she can pull the minions in and stun them for some time.
This might be a valid last pick from Pool Plato because they kind of do need to put another DPS there on the board, and Tassadar's already taken there from Vortex. So what do you do, Nathanius? Johanna and Tassadar was a great setup, and now they have no Lord of Sin to kind of back up at this point.
I mean, we've seen that Azmodan be so useful on this battleground in particular. They're going for the Malfurion. Okay, so they've got the sustained heals if they're going to get up to brawl in the thick of things, but where's the damage? It's Zeratul. So, I mean, we saw the use of Zeratul in the last map, but really wasn't able to make those big plays.
Not really. I mean, we did see that Pool Plato Samtangos amongst their teammates, Apauloh's favorite pick is Zeratul. So they know exactly how to deal with that Zeratul, and I thought that they dealt with Fan very well.
Okay, there it is. A very CC-oriented lineup with the Muradin and a new Barak. They really wanted to make sure that the cleanses weren't available, so we're going to see some very dive-heavy compositions, at least for Pool Plato Samtango going into game number 2. You have Hammer of Justice on Uther. Maybe we'll even see Divine Storm to follow that up. A new Barak diving in with the Burrow Charge. The Muradin with the Stormbolt. There's a lot of very, very scary lockdown potential for Pool Plato Samtango.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities for those big brawls then to unfurl as we do have game number 2 ready of this best of 3. This is a very important game for Cloud9 Vortex. If they drop this battleground here, they will be eliminated from the North America June Open. And here we are, as you guys can see, loaded in. We are taking a look, of course, at Cloud9 Vortex, who will be having Syracuse playing as Sylvanas, Fan as Zeratul, Bobby Hankhill as Tassadar, Zixz as Malfurion, and Tazza as Johanna.
So Cloud9 Vortex, as you said, this is their back up against the wall, and they set up for that Azmodan combo, and unfortunately, it got sniped out. So I'm very curious, what will that do to their playstyle? Early on with that Azmodan, we didn't have a heck of a lot of aggression. This, however, is a map that if you don't have to play the stacking game like PST here on the left is, you could really just go for a heck of a lot of roaming.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it because Azmodan wants to, of course, rack up those stacks on this battleground, but with all the CC that he has to complement him, if you try to dive him, you're really putting yourself at risk of immediately getting stunned and bursted down.
All right, so Apauloh this time, he's going to be on that dwarf. It's not Bkid, but King Plato, Prismaticism, and Mookiez. Well, they're just not going to be able to keep the Mirrodin alive from that early game damage. And it might be a CC-heavy team coming out from pool Plato, some Tangos, but that will actually take a little bit to kick in because the damage at level 1 is just not really going to be there.
Yeah, it was a very, very fast first takedown for Cloud9 Vortex. Not a, it's not a bit early for that to become the ultimate advantage to get in this scenario, but, a little bit of momentum, definitely a good start for them as they do need to win this game to stay alive.
All right, so Apauloh with the stun right there into the Blizzard. It's just, again, not going to be enough yet. But so far, you also notice something here. Cloud9 Vortex, they're not splitting up. They are sticking as 4, and they're going to go straight into that top lane, would you believe? The bottom, not really a lot going on yet, but even Bkid is going to have a heck of a time with a 4-on-1 pressure.
Yeah, it really comes down to them just looking for opportunities to try to make something happen. And Bobby Hank Hill on that Tassadar just kind of chilling by himself in the bottom lane, not really too worried about hitting that major regression, but Prismatic will, of course, always be consistently looking for opportunities to get those big stack shots for that Globe of Annihilation.
Yeah, so how well-versed is Pool Plato some Tangos in the stacking game? They've seen a lot of it this weekend, but I think this is the first time they're actually going to be the ones playing the game. So I'm not entirely too sure with this lineup, especially with all the CC heavy, I'm not entirely too sure how that stacking game is going to get out of it. So back in some of the previous rounds, Nathanius, we had early stacks at 500 as early as 11 minutes in. I'm not expecting a repeat, at least so far that I've seen.
Man, not going for the world record on stacks today for Azmodan. I mean, you have two teams of such good skill. It's really tough to get those opportunities against them when they're always going to be seeking to actively deny you from just grabbing those waves, easily.
So Pool Plato, some Tangos are also going to now be mimicking the 4-man ping pong between 2 lanes. Problem is, they're fine Bobby Hank Hill in that bottom lane, so it's not exactly going to be an easy takedown, at least early on. Tazza is one of the more durable heroes early on, especially with a little bit of a lack of damage here from the PPST. And Cloud9 Vortex, they're just happy to continue going on their way. So far, it's kind of a dual ping pong. Not a lot of aggression because they kind of ebb and flow, and they never really meet each other, do they?
It's like the rise of the tide, right? And by the time PPST actually makes it back towards the center lane, Cloud9 Vortex is already back up top. So it's just been an undulating pressure across both the center and the top lanes.
Yeah, and you can see Tazza there, Knight takes pawn with that Condemn, really doing a heck of a lot of damage, and it also brings them very close together. The Malfurion and the Sylvanas, they can just easily get off a heck of a lot of damage. Fan with the cleave as well. It just comes out very nicely, and that's why they have such insane wave clear speeds going back and forth. They don't miss any experience doing this. They clear a wave, come down, clear the next, and by the time they're ready to go back, there's another free and fresh wave.
Yeah, and of course it gets really interesting because clearing those waves on this battleground in particular nets you those gems as you can turn in for the web weavers. That's where rotating around becomes a little bit trickier because there's always going to be at least one lane you can't have everybody in to actually deny that web weaver from getting some damage on your fortifications.
All right, so level 4 talents are coming past. We're going to be looking at level 7 here momentarily. We do got promotes on both sides. The Azmodan at level 4 once more. We see it a lot, and the Tazza are there as well at level 4. It is the auto attack, kind of Zeratul coming out from Fan. He has the focus attack, level 7, very likely, with the follow-through. But the other thing is a Nubarak. We've seen a heck of a lot of Nubarak builds. It's a pure Beetle Lord here today so far.
Okay, so he's going to have that to also help be really nice for pushing the lanes forward as well.
Yep.
As he continues to cast those spells and spawn those beetles, as you mentioned. And we do have those gems being turned in. Now the first wave of web weavers shall descend upon this battleground, and that's where they're going to try to get some momentum here, pushing some of these fortifications, maybe getting a bit of extra EXP if they can bring any forts down.
All right, so we had actually a ping on the very bottom middle of the map, and that is where one of those siege camps are. The siege giants down there are going to be activated here because if you don't activate them before those web weavers show up, they actually disappear off the map for the duration of the push. And this is also a big signal to the opponent. PPST is like, wait, that camp is still on the board. It didn't disappear, and that's why you see them now actually roam down. So the ping was originally from Fan and Cloud9 Vortex, but Apauloh and crew were able to react fast enough, they actually steal it out.
Yeah, and that'll be useful at least as being some sort of deterrent to the web weavers that are pushing against them. And we can see that there's a big push towards the center, especially the top side, with Cloud9 Vortex pushing that top lane through with the support of that web weaver. They crash through the gates, they knock down 2 of those turrets, and they're making some heavy damage onto this fort. And grabbing this, it's just building on those little advantages. They've hit 8 a bit faster, get closer to 9, and as we always mention, getting to those heroic talents.
Yeah, so with the fort going down, that's a big chunk of experience now going the way of Cloud9 Vortex. And, you know, last game, this was pretty much the state, but reverse. Pool Plato some Tangos at this point of the previous game was about ahead a level. Right now, it's about ahead a level for Cloud9 Vortex. I'm getting word that Asmodee up to 144 stacks in 6 minutes. It's a very admirable effort.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near the world records, but hey, 144 here, 144 there. Soon you're going to hit that 500 cap.
Yeah, it's faster progress than we saw Asmodee on the last Battleground at least. So.
Oh man, Prismatic, he's actually going to be the big guy going down, and I mean big guy. He has a huge hitbox, and you see Cloud9 Vortex, they descended upon him, the roots, the surround, and the Lotus Inn is going to be out for another 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's like, well, he had some good momentum going, but that will slow down the picking up of those stacks on that globe for at least a little bit of time being now, as Tazza continues to push here against Muradin in the south lane.
Yeah, and the Tassadar with that promote as well. We've been seeing a heck of a lot of promote this weekend, and there's a big difference in gems so far kind of contributed towards the causes of the Tomb of the Spider Queen, because we're already 29 out of 55 once more to Cloud9 Vortex. They have been very methodical with it. They go into a lane, they get the gems, they put them in. They go into a lane, they get the gems, they put them in. And that's why we had the first turn in. And now they've put in so many more than their opponents.
Yeah, I mean, Nubarak is holding on to close to 40 gems. Like, he only needs to turn in basically once, and then you've got your next wave of web weavers. Of course, be a bit overkill at this point, as they do have 27 turned in. But you make a really good point. Cloud9 Vortex going for an early boss.
Do we have no eyes on this? I don't think so. We have no clairvoyance ready to go. The Uther did go for the cleanse, just like Kubi was talking about a little bit, and they have no idea. This boss is already down under half. The Grave Golem is going to be a heck of a surprise to PPST, and you can see they're a little confused. Like, they're not bottom,
where'd the enemy team
top.
go?
They're not turning in because the gems are sitting at 44, and boom, there it is. This has got to be a bit of a surprise to them, because this is going to create more space for more of those gems to go in for Cloud9 Vortex, and they could actually have not only a boss go to keep, but the web weavers too.
Yeah, I mean, they hit the heroics so much faster than PPST, and now we have not only so at the very least you do get the web weavers going the other way, but having this to push through could get them an even greater experience lead and buy them time to push other lanes if they really wanted to.
Now this is a really early boss by all means into this one. We usually don't see this kind of going on, 13, 16. Usually that's when a boss kind of becomes that top priority, but with level 10 on both sides, if we had gotten the red web weaver push to go with this as well, the damage could have been devastating, not only against keeps but the remaining forts. But because they didn't, Plato some Tangos will use that space. They got those blue web weavers going, so they're not going to suffer nearly as much as they could have. I don't know what Bkid is kind of trying to accomplish here, because the rest of Cloud9 is there. He has 34 gems, and there's not going to be anybody here to pick him up if he does drop, and he will get the Divine Shield. The Uther player at the last minute saves his bacon and the gems. PBST will be okay.
I mean, like, he's been holding on to those gems so much in this game, and losing them at that point, like, they're very close to actually being able to redeem their next wave of web weavers as soon as this one ends for them. So they want to keep the momentum up, and as you said, being able to get the web weavers when they did prevented that boss from basically giving Cloud9 an unstoppable lead.
And look at the positioning of Cloud9. They were all bottom, they were all mid. They expected actually all the web weavers to be down. They had the positioning for the turn-in, but it's still going top. This was a really smart move from Pool Plato some Tangos, but will they actually pay for it here with this big advance? Prismatic is kind of on the wrong side of this one, but Apauloh is in the thick of things. Here comes the Void Prison. Apauloh's going to put himself in it for that safety net, but now we got the pings. It's like, what is Asmodee doing over here? And Cloud9 is going to punish that. We don't have a shield for him, and the Lord of Sin is going to get really, really low. The protected shield from Uther is actually going to be good, but a Nubarak will drop. There goes the Muradin. Was this too much? Was this too high a price to pay? Asmodee will live. King Plato, it looks like he will live there as well, but it was 2 takedowns to the name of Vortex.
Yeah, I mean, they went on the Saving Private Asmodee mission, and it did not pay off too well for them, as he does get picked off at the end of the day anyway.
Fan picked him off. He chased him down in stealth.
Oh boy. Well, definitely a great engagement to be able to take for Cloud9 Vortex, as they now move up in talents as well as those 2 levels, and they continue to push. Their web weavers are coming out onto the battleground now, and they're just continuously applying pressure everywhere.
And with 3 takedowns right there, I mean, that's a lack of a map position here from PPST. So already you can see the top web weaver already pushing towards that keep. Mid and bottom are going to be the big targets. Mid will actually get cleaned up by the Tangos, but bottom fort is on that chop block, and this is more experience into the Vortex pocket. You mentioned it before. They have that talent tier advantage, and Pool Plato some Tangos do not want to fight this.
No, at this point it gets very, very awkward. As you know, if you could at least fight by a tower, you get that extra bit of damage, something to help soak it up. Throwing those globes out, of course, is always nice. Using the range advantage as much as humanly possible. But still, the Red Web Weaver pushing in the south side, it demands attention.
Look at that promoted minion there in the middle. I mean, that is really kind of the big key right there. The Tazza stayed with them. They promoted the minions. That really did extend that push. Now we're kind of reset back to parity. 0 gems, but all the forts are going to fall out of this one. And look at this. The ping immediately says, go for the bruisers, take it away as a tool that PPST can come back into this.
Yeah, and there's still a reasonable amount of gems being held onto for both of these teams. Not enough to go straight for another wave of Web Weavers, but you know, one good fight here or there could give just enough to be able to make it happen and swing the momentum even further. I would mostly be concerned for PPST if Cloud9 Vortex gets another one soon.
And look at Zixz, he's just kind of camping out there in that vent. He's going to be providing some cover here for Fan. It's going to be the first 11. Going back and forth, yeah, it does look like anywhere between half and 3/4 or so between the two teams. Not enough, as you said, for that turn-in. We do got one siege camp left there on the map, because this bruiser camp is going to be going down very quickly. That's only going to leave the siege into the bottom, and we got the positioning. I think Fan is actually going to go for it right now, because it's really got that only other objective. Remember, when the objectives are down, you got to look at the other points on the map.
Yeah, find something else to make some use of, especially considering that PPST has just tied up on talents now, but Cloud9 Vortex will have that lead once again. They'll be able to hit 16 much, much faster than pull Plato some Tangos, and that's where they can start to really think about going for another big fight. Of course, a level advantage still keeps them in a good spot. It's just how much do you want to risk?
So 900 damage orbs coming out from Prismatic. He's about at the 200, 250 mark. For those stacks, but if they want to fight, this is basically the big chance right here. Pool Plato some Tangos has to initiate before 16, otherwise they're going to be down at that sweet spot for a good while.
I mean, that Black Pool comes off cooldown. We have to see if he gets get any big globes in and manages to hit Syracuse and Bobby Hank Hill just off to the side, but Jaina immediately focused on taking a lot of that damage out of the play. Anubarak also takes a trade as well. They continue to push through this fort, knocking it down, but they make it behind the wall. Cloud9 Fan actually going to blink across, looking for Apauloh, but forced to retreat. Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, the wormhole, the stun just didn't exactly cover enough of the time, and he was able to get to safety, but they also hit 16 during that fight, and this is what I like to call the sweet spot. Vortex up 3 levels. They're going to have a heck of a window with that talent tier advantage. Blood for blood coming out, the tenacious roots as well, and the double bombs from Fan. So you're going to see him dart in, get some damage off, double bomb, and get out with that wormhole from his level 13 talents. And this is a little bit of a dire situation. Pool Plato some Tangos. You know, Kubi said that Cloud9 Vortex, their most picked map was Dragonchar, but he thinks that this is their best map, and so far they are really putting out their best.
Yeah, they've been having an absolutely phenomenal game so far here as they make their way towards this keep, getting it very low. I mean, defending this is going to be even more difficult. Just picking that off and just getting that experience and getting out would be nice. They do manage to kill it. Of course, here come the roots. There's the globe hitting 3 of them, and they're on the retreat now, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to actually chase. Pool Plato some Tangos just has to take that loss and deal with it.
Yep, they got to deal with it, and sunglasses and all that fun jazz out of that. The stacks just hit 300 here. 302 for our Azmodan, and as you said, they eat that loss. They do spread out and try to repair some of the damage in the other lanes, and this is so much space created here for Cloud9 Vortex. They have no idea, and the damage is enough. They are going to take this down even before we can mobilize a defense from Pool Plato some Tangos, and now they have to once more deal with another boss.
Yep, and with that boss, with this level advantage, dealing with this becomes just so scary. They're still down that talent here. They're still down in the statistics from those experience levels, and you know, even if they manage to hold off this next push, it still comes once again back towards they're going to hit level 20 before you and get those storm talents.
Now, the good news is for Pool Plato some Tangos is there's not a threat of another Web Weaver push. We did actually just, defend that other one, but they lost out the keep. This means the boss is going to core, and you can already see it kind of off to the left. You got to defend that core. That is the big end game objective, and this is giving Cloud9 Fan and crew a lot of space to take out not only this gate, but they're now going to start pushing this keep, and there's just too much for Pool Platos to do here.
Yeah, they're distracting them very well. I mean, the Globe of Annihilation actually manages to hit quite a bit of Cloud9 Vortex as they slowly push them away from that keep, but the boss got a lot of time, created at least what could have been a big opportunity for them.
Yeah, 94%, 91%. There's still something ticking away. The catapults actually takes another big chunk out of it. So 87%, that's permanent damage. There's no mules here. And so many great plays coming out from Cloud9 Vortex. So much space created from a lot of these rotations. They're going to go straight to this bruiser camp. And it does look like it is going to be up for grabs. Cool Plato, some Tangos for the defense. They're looking for Syracuse. They're looking for Fan. They're getting low in the back. The Locust Swarm from Bkid will keep him up just a little bit longer. But he does drop. Prismatic with the laser will get the return takedown on top of Johanna, and would you believe that the Bruisers are going to go the way of PPST, but this fight is also not favoring Cloud9 Vortex.
Yeah, I mean, they're taking a reasonable trade, at least PPST so far, trying to grab as many picks as they can, getting Zeratul actually very low, and Tazza, so they're actually really doing a decent job of slowing this down. They're removing almost enough firepower to actually be able to protect that core moving forward to at least buy some time. Still, the Storm Talents will be coming in, it seems, for Cloud9 Vortex with a reasonable edge, but PPST, I mean, if they had lost that fight badly, that could be it. You know, one wipe and the game ends.
That actually could have been the game. Yeah, you're right. We did hit 16 though from Pool Play to some Tangos, and I think that did really help a lot. We had 2 Blood for Bloods come out from that one, as well as the third wind, or the Stone Skin, sorry, for Mirrodin, so the Stone Form, I should say. Got 50% of his hit points on demand. It's quite a bit of survivability, and you saw the Warriors. They survived and survived and survived, and because of those takedowns, Cloud9 Vortex, they're now actually on the defensive.
Yeah, and at this point, you know, Pool Play to some Tangos, they've still got a lot of work to do. But being able to tie up those talent tiers just for a short while gives them some opportunities. They've released their web weavers as well, try to push back and take some more forts. Of course, they're sitting at just 2 against 6 remaining for Cloud9 Vortex. But that also means there's a lot of experience for them to pick up if they can make use of this web weaver wave and actually get some of these fortifications destroyed.
So level 17 to level 18, you are right. You know, the 20 is going to be coming down very soon because we're about to take 19 for Cloud9 Vortex. So it's still about 2 levels, but still, if you can even trade out evenly and you're 2 levels behind, you're actually trading better than your opponents. This big fight is going to be the next big milestone here.
Yeah, and now they're moving in once again. We have that Archon stepping right forward. The Void Prison, of course, locking a few of them down, though, so not all the trades happening just yet. And Nubarok actually going to be the first pick out here. Pool Play to some Tangos, not good if they want to make sure to get this comeback going.
Oh, and some great roots there on top of not Bkid, Apauloh on that Mirrodin. The orbs are going down, but it's not enough. Jaina's going to drop off to the side of the screen, and now it's the full-fledged retreat. We've already lost out 1 warrior. The Jaina is down. The DPS only really comes down to Azmodan, and 5-on-1. He's good, but he's not that good.
Yeah, and Cloud9 Vortex wants to push this all the way back and tie this series up here if they can. The entirety, what's remaining of Pool Play to some Tangos retreats back to the fountain, but the real question now is what can they actually do to get them off their backs when they're this close to the core?
Well, they got the Bruisers now marching down. They had to wait for some of those creep waves to come in so that the shots from the core won't actually land on them. You see the black arrows from Sylvanas disabling this tower, disabling this keep, and the keep will drop. This is a fully naked core, no bastions of defense left in any of these lanes, and this will be the retreat. We're not too greedy here, but level 20 for Cloud9 Vortex. If Pool Play to some Tangos keep chasing this actually could be a trap.
Yeah, and this is where things can get really dicey because they can, if they go in to take one of these big fights in a double storm shield, they have a lot of opportunities to get that defensive capability set up if they need it. And at this, for Pool Play to some Tangos, are they just going to try to get to that level 20 and avoid fights as much as possible? Like,
yep.
At what point?
More or less.
At what point did they worry about just like a core snipe? There's so many defenses that Pool Play to some Tangos would have to go through if they actually wanted to base trade.
Well, there's no boss available. Both the Bruiser camps were just taken within the last few moments. The only other, well, okay, I lied. The boss is available. It just ticked up. And if we can actually, do we have enough? It's so close. 49 gems to 60 out of 65. We're so very close. If Cloud9 Vortex can soak a little bit more and get that push, they could go for the boss as well and just seal the deal for a win. But they're not even going to wait for it. They saw everyone showing in that mid. They're transitioning top. I think we are going to know about it this time. Yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 3 times, get out of my life. And Prismatic and crew, they're going to go for it. They need to contest this because a boss at this point in the game could just be game over.
Yeah, all they would need to do is distract him, and the boss would be able to deal enough damage to the core itself. So let me just go for the follow-up snipe on it. And that Void Prism not actually hitting too much for Zeratul here. So most of the team is able to remain active. Now, Jaina does get sniped off first, being the squishiest on the team, but we do have those stuns, those roots coming in to try to hold everybody together for the AoE here.
It's just too much damage right now. Cloud9 Vortex, they already took out the Jaina. There goes the Azmodan as well. The Tranquility was massive. Everybody just got around that Malfurion, and they stayed alive right through. Some really good orbs coming out right there from that Azmodan, but it just will not be enough, and we cannot hold. PPST will actually drop game number 2, and this will be the time that we were just talking about, Nathaniel, which means that game number 3 hype for our first series here today in day 2 coverage.
Yeah, Cloud9 Vortex not going to go down without a fight, it would seem, as they continue to descend upon this core. Mookiez throwing as many punches as he can with Bkid, just trying to buy time, trying to make a miracle happen, but Fan locks straight onto that core with Tazza, and everyone just gonna finish this off, tie the series up, and yeah, game 3, the rubber match here in the very first series of the day.
Absolutely amazing play coming out from Vortex. And, you know, we did bring up this concern. Pool Plato, some Tangos, they didn't really have a big stacking strategy. We've never actually seen them run Azmodan here in this coverage over this weekend. And overall, it just didn't really look like those orbs hit the mark as much as they should have.
Yeah, really good positioning. Thoughts on the game, Kubi?
It was a very, very interesting game. I think really what it came down to, there was sort of a lot of comfortable picks for either team. We saw the double warrior from Pool Plato, some Tangos, but also just a lot of really, really strong picks on Vortex's side. But more importantly, I would say that their positioning was really, really on point. More focused on forcing bad positions from the enemy team. So if we can take a look at this replay, I can show you guys a really, really good example of this. So we see that Pool Plato, some Tangos is pushing out with their web weavers in the top lane. And I think the big thing that I want to try to focus on is what happens when we see the rotation from Cloud9 Vortex. So we see Johanna is rotating up here. So we're going to see this, and that's going to be Tazza, of course. He's putting a lot of pressure, and he's going to be moving in this direction in particular. What's going to happen is we're going to see Azmodan actually ends up getting forced out away from the rest of his team. And I think that the big thing to point out here is that he ends up having to back up in this direction. It's really the only safe way for him to go. So let's go ahead and advance it for a little bit. You guys can see right there, he immediately sees, okay, I can't get with the rest of my team. I'll just try to back up, throw those abilities down to try to put some pressure on. And this is the next big thing that happens. We see a very, very nice Void Prison at this point. And of course, it is going to isolate many of the members of PPST at this point. And what's going to happen is we're going to advance it a bit, and we're going to see the Azmodan really get isolated from the rest of his team. Okay, and there it is. He does take a lot of damage. Doesn't end up getting taken down right away, but that silence arrow is so big in helping them clean up the rest of that fight.
Yeah, and they did actually pick up both the warriors on that. So instead of only going home with the Azmodan, they paid for it with 2.
Yep, that's right. So they end up getting 2 takedowns. Not the original target, but they put so much pressure on him, forcing the rest of the team to rotate. A really, really big play. We just wanted to highlight the strong positioning from Tazza and the rest of the team on Vortex.
Yeah, pulling him out of position and then even getting that follow-up takedown on Azmodan, even though that rescue mission worked.
Fan chased him down after.
Fan dove in for him and got him at the end of the day. So that even that miraculous thing didn't really pay off too well. Gives Cloud9 Vortex that 1-1 tie in this series. So we will have to go to a deciding game 3 to see which one of these teams will move on. Whoever loses, this is it. Your tournament life is over.
This is it. I mean, you don't go home empty-handed. We have a little bit of cash for your rewards here, but it's never a good feeling to be up against that wall. But, you know, Cloud9 Vortex bounced back. Who knows? Pool Plato, some Tangos could similarly bounce back.
We'll have to see, guys. We are going to go to a short commercial break while we set up game number 3. You're watching the Heroes of the Storm North America June Open.
Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor, rated teen.
Welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Heroes of the Storm North America June Open. It's all tied up 1-1 here between Plato, Tangos, and Cloud9 Vortex. Good series so far, boys.
Oh yeah, man, like no complaints about that game.
Yeah, Vortex maybe looking a little angry at this point. They didn't like dropping that first game. So we're the better team here. Let's really bring it to the enemy team. I like that. Show some rebound, but we're going to have some awesome game number 3, I would think, yeah?
Yeah, I'd have to imagine. We do know that the battleground is going to be Cursed Hollow, and as we get ready to move into the draft phase, I believe we actually have some player spotlights to look at as well from these teams, as they have fought so hard to stay alive in this tournament.
Yeah, Plato, some Tangos. You know, the king himself, King Plato, Jeffrey Yee, did play out for Boston, Massachusetts as well. Loves that Jaina. He's been playing that Jaina, I think, twice in a row now with King Plato. But, you know, he was once transported off a mountain by helicopter when he got a concussion from a snowboarding accident. Thankfully, it wasn't a globe of annihilation, just a snowboarding accident.
That's right, yep. Obviously a very, very strong player, making some good plays thus far in this series.
Yeah, been really nice to see. And, of course, we can also take a look at a player from the flip side as Cloud9 Vortex bringing this back, have bought themselves this Game 3, and we take a look at Syracuse.
Going to be Syracuse, yeah. Forrest, Holland, a very, very good player. He's been around in the scene for some time now and has been on Vortex for a while as well. One of the best bowlers in the Southwest. That is a very interesting claim to fame.
So the All-Star Punk was his band when he started at 12 years old. Man, the Blizzard All-Star Punk band could have been amazing, I think.
Really, really good point. But yeah, it's some really nice Sylvanas plays in that last game, especially with the Wailing Arrow. So kudos to him for that. We'll see if he continues to lead his team to victory.
Yeah, I'm more jealous of his mad bowling skills, of course.
Yeah, man.
We've been loving hearing your guys' feedback as well on everything related to the North America June Open. Of course, you can hit us up on Twitter. Follow us at BlizzHeroes and tweet with the hashtag HeroesWC. We've made it. We made it to Game 3. Who's going to win? Let us know on social media. But it's time to go to the draft and see who we're playing on the final map of this series.
All right, so we said it is going to be Cursed Hollow. This is a very favored map amongst a lot of the teams. You can do a lot of big things here, but Kubi, how important do you think Vikings are going to be for this deciding match?
Yeah, I think we're absolutely going to see this play. We know that Vortex is comfortable on this hero. Platos, I know they're going to be practicing a lot going into this event. They have to recognize the strength of Vikings, especially on some of these larger maps.
So the same bands from game number 2 are going to carry over here to game number 3. No Illidan, sorry fans. And
got him, I like it.
And no Kael'thas once more. That Kael'thas did absolute work in game number 1, and Cloud9, they think that they found the winning combination here of bands.
Yeah, it seems like Cloud9's recognized that the Kael'thas is going to be the big sticking point here against Plato and Tangos. So denying that is nice, but Plato and Tangos actually pick up Sylvanas at the start of this one, so switching sides this map.
Yep.
And really, how does Cloud9 Vortex complement this? They take Jaina for the first time in the series.
Take it away. We saw some really, really strong plays right after that. So Jaina is going to be the pickup, and Tazza following that up.
So this is the first time I think King Plato won't be playing Jaina.
Yeah.
So what else does he have up his sleeve? I mean, there's no Kael'thas, no Jaina. Those are really the big mages. I'm very curious to see what he is. There they are. The Lost Vikings have found their way to this battleground of Cursed Hollow.
Yes, very, very strong. Has a lot of opportunities to split. Actually, why don't we take a look at the Vikings' abilities? Of course, as you guys can see, there are 3 heroes that can be controlled separately, each individual hot groups, and that means, of course, that you can also soak experience in 3 separate lanes. Usually, we see them split up to control 2 lanes between the 3 heroes, and then the remaining members of the team will split soak down another, perhaps putting on some pressure. But really the big deal is that longboat raid in the team fights. It really just puts a lot of pressure in that back line to deal some damage out.
So some heroes trivia for you. These guys are the only guys with abilities that have exclamation marks at the end of their names.
Wow. I did not know that. Really? That is true?
That is an interesting tidbit, for sure.
I think that's actually about to change maybe in some of the changes coming up.
That's another topic for another time, my friend. Double bans coming in. Brightwing is out. Zeratul is out. Look at those target bans on Fan. Illidan and Zeratul, Nathaniel.
I mean, 2 of the strongest, melee assassins that you're going to be seeing, especially on this battleground where those objectives are going to be very crucial for getting the curses to make those big pushes. And I think they already have a big composition that they like, having Sylvanas with the Lost Vikings to spread out on this very large battleground while pushing down those fortifications is going to be very important.
All right, once more, Malfurion into the fray. That's the double support. There's no Brightwing available because of that ban, and Skarda will enter the battleground.
We haven't seen Zagara in some time. Let's take a look at what makes Zagara so strong. I think the big thing to note is, of course, the Creep Tumor. It is a very, very great ability. Throw it down. And if you guys aren't familiar with StarCraft, it does give you a lot of vision, especially in areas with vents that you can't necessarily see straight through. The other one is a lot of damage ability with the Hunter Killer. You can basically target it onto a hero and it will chase them down until it hits a wall or something to the effect, but it puts a lot of damage output.
So let's say, hypothetically, you're in Cristado, there's a tribute coming up, you can put a Viking to soak in the lane, but he's against Zagara. Zagara's going to steamroll over that lane. It is absolutely insane to try to take her one-on-one, let alone a third-on-one. But coming into this, last pickups here from Pool Plato, some Tangos, they're going to want some global presence with the Flying Falstad.
That's right, and we of course need a healer, a support, and it is going to be Uther to round the composition out. Not really any amazing targets for the Divine Shield. It could still be used, but might be a possibility, a candidate
Johanna?
for the Divine Storm. Yeah, of course, Johanna is just always so difficult to take down, but this they could really be putting it over the top of the Divine Shield. You're right about that.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point, looking at like who you actually would use the Divine Shield on, but I'm very excited to see a little bit more Zagara play, as I know that those creep tumors, man. As soon as you step on that creep,
you were a Terran.
as soon as you step, yeah, but the thing is, you're playing Terran versus Zerg. As soon as you step on that creep, you know that they can see you the whole way through. So
they know.
Yeah, and that's the scariest part. So that the vision around this battleground will be very key, and of course spreading those creep tumors as they don't even go away when Skarda dies. So you can get a lot of vision and build up that momentum in the lanes early on with it.
All right, the last pick there was Mirrodin. That was going to be the Warrior pick for Cloud9, and we are ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. The tie-breaker match. Loser goes home with some cash in the pocket, and the winner will continue on to see if they can become the hero of the storm.
For sure, always a big important thing to advance further through that lower bracket, and really trying to make a name for themselves would be a big win for Pool Plato, some Tangos.
That's right, and we are here. We are loaded in to Cursed Hollow to decide who will move on and who will go home. Of course, we are looking at Pool Plato, some Tangos on the left side of the map. We have Prismatic playing as the Lost Vikings, Apauloh as Johanna, Bkid as Sylvanas, King Plato as Falstad, and Mookiez as Uther.
So the big thing to look at from there is Prismatic. How are they going to use these Vikings? Will it be a split soak? Will it be a triple soak with 4 roam? Are they all going to be in the same lane? But let's take a look at Cloud9 Vortex. Fan, Zixz, Tazza, Syracuse, and Bobby Hank Hill. They're sticking together at strength in numbers, and they're possibly looking for that first blood on top of King Plato.
I mean, King Plato finds himself in a rather awkward position. If he were to step out into the center of this lane, things could get rather dicey in a matter of seconds for him. But Cloud9 Vortex don't see anyone. They don't see an opportunity to jump on top of anyone, so they're going to start to rotate back towards the center position, towards those Vikings, and they catch a glimpse of this, and I don't think Prismatic's going to want to take a big fight against all 5 of them at once.
Yeah, 3 on 5 might sound like okay odds, but not at level 1, not for the Vikings, not yet. But it's interesting, he's putting them middle lane. We don't really kind of see them. They're in that center on this battleground. He usually will take either a top or a little bit of a split, so I'm kind of curious to see how that will work out. So far, the roam comp, however, from Vortex has gone all the way from bottom, all the way back up to the top, and they're just really kind of putting a lot of pressure elsewhere. And so back and forth, level 2 is going to be coming out. You can see those creep tumors coming in. That's some of that Zerg creep you're talking about.
Yeah, and of course, not only does it just give that vision, but also a little bit of buffs to some of those spawns that we'll be seeing, such as this Hunter Killer coming in, which does do a really good job of pushing people out of lanes with the massive damage output that it does have. I guess I can say, if you have keeping the Vikings in the middle lane, if they need to move someone out of either the top or the bottom, it'll be easier for one of the Vikings to split off and cover either one rather than running across the battleground.
Well, we're going to have to see if they will split that. We still got about a minute, a little less than a minute before the first tribute coming in. Tazza's not exactly having the best of times with the slingshots, with throwing swords at his face. Those Vikings do have 2 ranged attacks and 1 melee, and the Olaf there can actually really take a huge beating before he actually has to retreat. So coming into this, level 3s, and we're going to be looking at probably just about level 4 by the time that tribute does come down, and this is going to be the big key point. Will the tribute be top? Will it be bottom?
Yeah, and as soon as that comes up, we're still quite a ways off from seeing any curses, but this is where you start to build that momentum. You can possibly force a fight, and it's still quite nice since you have, of course, always that option of denying it, but also playing around it to take other objectives while the other team heads to grab that tribute themselves.
All right, so Prismatic, this is the key point. Is he going to split up? We should have that next tribute coming up in the next 5 seconds, 5 to 15 coming up. There's the counters. Here comes the tribute. 13, it will be bottom. Everybody is up top with those 3-man soaks. King Plato, however, he's got to keep himself relatively healthy. He doesn't have that fountain in the back, but he does have a fly, which means he can come right back in very quickly after visiting that fountain.
Yeah, it's going to be very tricky since we do have Fan who's been pushing up quite a bit in this south position. And if he can catch King Plato out of position, he's got a big opportunity. Prismatic splits off
Sneaky.
one of the, just splits off just one of the Vikings. He's like, okay, well, let's hope Mirrodin doesn't notice one of us went missing.
Well, no, it's very likely to get reported on that, like his face is going to show up on milk cartons everywhere. But 2-on-1, Fan is going to have his work cut out from him. Now, what I thought I saw was King Plato actually heading home to heal up. He'd have a massive advantage over top of Fan if he did have those hit points. And Fan, you know, he's dealing with this. It's a big push top as Prismatic will eventually pick up this first tribute. But Olaf apparently is going to drop a little bit too much micromanagement, it seems, for Prismatic. He will lose one Viking. But the big story is right here. Bobby Hankill, Syracuse, and I think the Malfurion is out and about there somewhere. Looks like he's back to core. They pushed in and cleared out the entire gate.
Yeah, and with that, with all the pressure that you're able to bring in with Zagara there, with those spawns, those banelings, those hunter killers coming in, really helping to push forward and gain that dominating position, because that's also going to gain them that experience, that very small lead that they have, but you know, those leads build up time and time again, and will be very important moving forward in this game.
All right, so Falstad did eventually head back. He flew into the bottom. He's not going to find Tazza down there, or sorry, he's not going to find Fan on that Jaina down there, so a little bit of experience soaked now to go towards PPST, and as you can see in the top, everything is pretty much as it should be, but a great ambush coming into the mid. Oh, so close with the roots. Could have actually been Olaf on the chop block, but so far they will survive, and level 7 from both sides are coming out.
Yep, and so we're starting to move towards further climbing up that talent tree for both teams. But, you know, at the very least, it seems that without a big advantage for either side, they're still in a reasonable position to get their heroics close enough to each other that there's not much to worry about. Tazza is going to get jumped out here by Johanna and the Vikings, though, trying to body block and keep him away.
And body block he did. You saw the Malfurion in the back. He picks up the tribute, 1 apiece now. Fan didn't move from that lane. Zagara is actually still up top pushing with that Tassadar. And you know what? The Tassadar, this round, well, I'm not too sure that's going to be actually working out for PPST. Bkid coming in there. He's not on that dwarf. He's on Sylvanas this time. He's not nearly as durable as what we saw in the game number 1 when he was Mirrodin. So jumping into that on top of that 3-man stack. Apauloh's really low here as well. Mookiez, his mana is starting to really get chunked down as well. And Zagara, it's really hard to take her one-on-one, but with the Tassadar and that promote as well, top lane is just continuing to suffer.
Yeah, really trying to just build up a lot of momentum off the back of that Zagara push, not really leaving lane at any point since she set up camp, as it were. And now with another tribute spawn, we're getting closer and closer to a forced curse.
Fan down south is actually able to capitalize on some chicken for dinner, because Falstad is going to be in that respawn chamber for a little bit here. And again, that experience, so going back and forth, is going to be now advantageous for Vortex.
Yeah.
Not only with the siege, but that bottom lane. So even if they don't get this tribute, it's not the end of the world. This isn't a curse. They might pick up a Viking or two. Look at those Banings. Tazza looking for him, but the jump is enough. Prismatic's going to be okay. Here comes King Plato with that fly. They are really trying to fight out for this tribute.
I mean, they pushed them away for quite some time, but with the rest of PPST coming in, they're doing their best to deny this, but Olaf does get snapped up. There's the Condemn bringing everybody together, but can they capitalize on it and get some picks? I'm not quite sure. Apauloh does get knocked down, so no more Condemns in this battle.
Oh, Prismatic might be a little bit too far forward. He doesn't have a Hydralisk on him yet, but Fan, again, he wasn't part of this. We have level 10. We can easily turn right back on top of this. Just, it's not enough yet for the
Devouring Maw.
He's down. Exactly, the Devouring Maw. Tazza cleans up Eric into the back, and there was nothing the rest of the team could have done. Tazza could actually be suffering a little bit here, but you see the Dwarf Toss. Here comes the Archon, and we're still fighting for the tribute.
Yeah, this has just been one prolonged battle over this tribute, and it's you know, it's a key tribute as either one of these teams get the opportunity for a curse once this one is claimed.
And Fan is just doing that Fan thing into the bottom lane. Finally, Johanna's going to go down there. This might be the signal from PPST to say, just give it up. It's not worth it. We're losing out too much in too many of these other lanes. They still don't have those heroics here either. But Bobby Yanko, he's used his. The Maw is down. I think we still have a Tranquility ready to go. So Zixz and crew, they will eventually get this this tribute, and it does look like the 2-man gang into the bottom lane has actually stopped Fan in his tracks.
Yeah, I mean, considering that it took them so long to get those heroic talents out there. The opportunity for them to take another fight was certainly available for Cloud9 Vortex if they had to, and now they can still continue to push forward, and they're one tribute away from getting that first curse.
And that tribute's going to be coming up in not that far off, but still, look at this. Fort is going to drop level 11 to just 10. We've solidified about a level lead. Eric is even going to pay the price on this one. Bobby Hank Hill just doing way too much damage with that Tazza. And now coming into this, as you said, one tribute away, which means curse. They've already cleaned up one fort. Their bottom lane is just looking bare, and it's going to be a bottom tribute.
So now this battle that's kind of been going between the Falstad and the Jaina in the bottom position is really going to come down to how much they can actually make happen as everyone else starts to rotate down. Everyone is on their way. They know this is a very important one. The Vikings still lagging behind a little bit in the top lane, but they're going to go for it, and immediately Bkid Forrest back, watching out as that water elemental does drop.
And here comes the Avatar, the Water Elemental on top of Apauloh. He might be a tough cookie to crack, but oh, that's going to be the Maw dragging it into the depths. And here's the follow-up. Big damage going down, and the laser for the counter. King Plato, unfortunately, just not enough to deter that teammate takedown on top of that Johanna. And look, blue team cursed, Nathanius. They got it during that entire fight. There was someone in the back, and they picked up the first curse of the game.
And this is so nice, being able to bring down those forts and getting all of those minion waves instantly killed, basically, with any amount of area of effect damage will net them that experience just faster and faster, and that's how you really build on this lead, this level advantage that they've already had, which, you know, isn't monstrous, but it can become that if they take one bad step here.
And level 13 has now been acquired. Cloud9 Vortex, I mean, we're still going to be putting the irons to him here. At least we're trying. The Tangos have not taken a takedown yet. Zixz with that tranquility, once again, just kind of showing the big power of the Malfurion and why he's been picked so much this weekend. And now with that disengage, it's kind of just going to be a little bit more of a passive game for a bit here from Pool Plato, some Tangos. Prismatic, he's going to have to vote, but he can't because Eric isn't there. And it looks like we're actually going to give up that chase. There's too many other things on the map to go grab.
Yeah, and as you know, as you've said several times already, you know, the objective is no longer a factor at this moment. Go pick up some of the siege camps if you can. Get those mercenary camps and make use of it. We do have Pool Plato, some Tangos going for that boss, though.
Yeah, the Grave Golem could be a really good pickup for them because that's going to be forcing a lot of Cloud9 Vortex into the bottom lane, but we also might have actually been anticipating this. The Tazza positioning was actually really good. He can use the Oracle, he can look right through this bush, and the damage just doesn't seem to really be there for Pool Plato, some Tangos. It's getting low, and here comes the collapse. You're going to be looking for Maws and stalls, and already Sylvanas is out of the fight. She was taken down very quickly, and you know, when you do most of the legwork and the opponents sweep in, it is their benefit.
Cloud9 Vortex is just like, oh, thank you so much for wrapping this one up for us. It's quite nice. We'll be taking that, and now they have the aggressive boss as they continue to push the southwest keep, basically, now.
A lot of pings going down for that top Grave Golem to now march in. You know, this is not only a Grave Golem, it's also those Siege Giants, and that's why I was kind of looking at, they might have anticipated this. They went early for the Siege Giants, and then they said, all right, they're not on the map. Let's go find out where the Pool Plato, some Tangos are, and having a Tazza as a scout, it's very safe. You can't really take him down that quickly. He has the Oracle to look in a lot of those bushes, and they find a boss. They have it marching down. You know, PPST, they can't move because, you know, that boss, and now look at this next Grave Golem coming down.
Yeah, Cloud9 Vortex sees the opportunity, like, well, most of you have to sit back to defend your keep because you don't want to lose that, obviously. So
good idea.
We get time now to go and grab our own Grave Golem, and they've managed to secure the majority of the objectives on the map, and at this point just basically waiting to see before those tributes start rolling over once again.
All right, so level 14 to 13 going back and forth. We are on the same talent tier. That's going to change very soon, though, because Vortex is about to hit 15, which, of course, will then put us in running distance there to get that next power boost. And when you have a 16 to 13 split, well, that's what I like to call the sweet spot. I think it'll be more of a 14 split. And, you know, Tazza, he's kind of in a little bit of trouble, but again, he's Tazza. I think Tastosis is the ones that said it takes 80 years to kill him out, and it's really not that far off. So Prismatic and crew, they're not going to get that ambush. Tazza, however, is going to be a little bit of trouble, but he has the Avatar ready to go, and now you see this counter collapse coming in.
Yeah, I'm going for a big chase here in the northwest side. There's that longboat there from the Vikings as the Devouring Maw comes in, grabbing just Uther and pushing in once again, going for the Condemn. Not really grabbing too many of Cloud9 Vortex's players, though.
Not at all, and I mean, the Hinterlands Blast went in with the Silence Area. It only hit Tazza, and he doesn't even look phased about it whatsoever. The Divine Shield out on Apauloh. Remember, there's a boss pushing this entire time. Look at that keep, already down to half. So there wasn't a takedown. They nearly grabbed Johanna, but still a lot of heroics spent out, and the pressure is still there. Look at the space created here as well. Everyone is just kind of way too far from this next tribute, but it's not a curse tribute. So as they go into this, it's likely not to be a big prolonged fight for it.
No, at this point, just being able to get this position here on the battleground is always nice. They've got that small level advantage, but they're also about to hit 16, and they'll be up a talent tier as well. And that's
the retreat right there because of that exact reason.
That cash money play right there.
Yep, so Zixz will pick it up. That's fine. 1-1 for the tributes. That's number 6, I think, for the tributes, or number 5 for the tributes, going back and forth. And, you know, Vortex with that 16, it's not quite the sweet spot, but still at that 16 tier. Tenacious Roots has been the name of the game for Malfurion this weekend.
Yeah, and being able to lock the opposing team down always going to be very useful, especially considering the amount of air effect damage that you can throw in. So with that Jaina, but now looking at this, it's just so difficult for PPST because they have not even gotten remotely close to getting a curse up in this game.
Not at all, so they're still sitting at 1 out of 3, and we've already put 4 into the pocket here of Vortex. And Bobby Henkel, look at this. He cleans out that bottom wave, promotes the minions, and that draws a lot of attention down there. If there was any objectives left on the top half of the map, so much space is created right there just from that one play. You can already see Tazza and Zixz kind of taking advantage of it a little bit by pushing it on top of this fort, and the more that you push into the bottom, more you push into the mid. Look at where that next tribute is.
Yeah, it's right in the mix of where all of Cloud9 Vortex is, and they can see that PPST is on their way over. They're just trying to buy a little bit of time. They've already got Zixz trying to grab that tribute, and he will put them now one again away from a second curse in this game.
But we just hit 16, so this is the best time to fight if you can do it. Skarda gets taken down, but not before the mob will take Uther into the depths. Apauloh is there. He's still actually staying fairly healthy. It's a 2-man Viking boat into the mix, and Fan and crew, they're just too bunched up. The area of effect damage is really starting to take its toll, but not on top of Tazza. That dwarf is still looking really healthy. He throws out the stormboat to cover the retreat, but it will still be a 2 for a quarter difference, as we did have Eric go down on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, the Water Elemental did everything that it could in that regards, but, you know, not the worst fight possible. The biggest issue for this scenario is still that tribute. They need to make sure they can get right on top of it. Having taken out 2 members of Cloud9 Vortex, this looks like this one should be pick-upable for PPST.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric is now back on the board. You see the Vikings just playing interference. Zixz and crew, they're going to just try to keep stalling as much as they can. Zagar is now back on the map. She's making her way over, and Jaina is now back into the battleground here as well. So as they go back and forth, if the stall game is good, they could actually just wait long enough and look for those heroic resets for a team fight.
Yeah, and they do come in. We have a lot of the roots being thrown in here as well, especially the root on the Johanna. Very important because you don't want to get hit with that condemn being pulled in. And we're still spreading some creep in the bush areas. They actually have a reasonable amount of vision of the opposing team as they dance around this tribute.
All right, so we're still dancing around. Bobby Hank Hill comes out of nowhere from left field, and Johanna's going to be paying that price. She's going to get taken down, and Syracuse and crew off to the right-hand side. The entire team is split. Vikings off to one side, the rest of the Tangos off to the left, and they're the ones on retreat. Bobby Hank Hill is there. Fan comes in with that root. Level 16 numbing blast is going to be enough. The blue team will once again be cursed. The stall was good. This could actually be the march into the keep and perhaps the game.
Yeah, I mean, that Water Elemental pushing in now with the Archon, grabbing so many of them. With the curse on top of this, absolutely none of these defensive fortifications will be firing at all as they break down the keep over here in the southwest side of the battleground, and a couple of them are still even out of commission.
The Vikings stole out the bruisers. That's what they were doing. They weren't backing. They were actually trying to put up enough counter pressure to help out for the defenses. And so far, it looks like that's pretty successful. But with the curse, Plato, some Tangos is going to be very busy doing the defensive things that they need to do. And this leaves us for a guaranteed Grave Golem to now march down that empty top lane to core.
Yeah, and this will be very nice for them as there's no, you mentioned right there, there's no defenses, there's no keep to stop that Grave Golem from just moving straight all the way down. And that doesn't have to be something that Cloud9 Vortex even pushes with. They can send the Grave Golem there. Because there's no defenses there, you have to deal with it or you're going to start taking core damage. And that opens up the door for Cloud9 Vortex to push any one of the other lanes in the battleground.
Yeah, but look at what Plato, some Tangos are doing. They're just actually abandoning their defenses. They know the keeps aren't going to go down. They started out this Grave Golem early. Olaf was tanking a majority of it. And it looks like they will actually solidify that pickup. So it's not going to be a double boss because that would have absolutely been the end of the game. But Cloud9 Vortex, I mean, they have a lot lot of siege and infrastructure still left in that bottom lane. They could probably just leave this golem to rampage while they push in, but they're not going to take the chance.
Yeah, it can be such a risky scenario. You know, do not throw your opportunities. You know, don't throw away the lead that you've managed to establish in this game, and just keep as many of your fortifications together, because you don't want to open up the door for them to try and trade out your defenses as you're making your way towards the core. But we could see, you know, that Grave Golem just made its sweet merry way all the way towards that core.
Yeah, but unfortunately it didn't put up any kind of permanent damage. The Vikings got caught somewhere. I guess they were trying to do out these bruisers, and Cloud9 Vortex said, all right, well, if we can't take your golem, we'll take your bruisers. Found them, punished them. It's not going to be the end of the world. We still have at least one on there, and they do have a reduced death timer because of their trait, but going back and forth, you know, level 20 is about to occur here, Nathaniel.
That's right. Those Storm Talents will be popping out for Vortex. They'll have just that talent tree. Not crazy far ahead, but having it ahead at all means that if there's a fight, they have access to more abilities that they can use for actually taking direct engagements against the enemy team.
All right, so that will be coming here very shortly. And Bobby Hankill, this is a familiar position. He's out there, he's split pushing, he has that promote ready to go. He's continually putting up pressure in those other lines. And then when the rest of the team kind of pushes in the mid, the top, they go jungling. It's just, you know, pressure that either Pool Plato Tangos has to answer, or they just lose out a lot of damage.
Yeah, and we can see that the majority of Cloud9's Vortex's focus is in this northwest area of the battleground, pushing the Vikings away. But you mentioned already, of course, Bobby Hankill on the Tazza in the southwest, continuing to be a nuisance.
He got the keep.
Yeah, got the keep, and that's every little bit there. Super frustrating considering that he did it all on his own.
He did it on his own, and that's a big power of the promote here as well, which is why we see a lot of Tazza, a lot of Brightwing these weekends. Their split pushing potential is absolutely insane. Both teams, level 20, taking a quick look here. Ragnarok and roll. We got the Divine Shield, some Bolts of the Storm coming out there, some Storm Shields as well. Redemption for our Uther, so he's going to come back to life. And then Mirrodin with the Rewind.
Yeah, and of course being able to recycle those cooldowns is very important when you're trying to get those big plays here in the center, in these big fights. We have another tribute coming up. Now, this is as important for Cloud9 Vortex to deny it, since PPST needs every little bit that they can, since we're on even levels now. There's the Devouring Maw, though, grabbing quite a few.
Yeah, the Maw takes down 2 into the depths, and the Vikings, you know, they're finally going to enter the fray. Apauloh is way too far forward. The great Blessed Shield into the Hinterlands Blast, and finally it does connect, but I don't think it's going to be enough for Apauloh. The Indestructible is there. She will live with the Divine Shield on top of there as well, but it's just not enough. Uther is out. He will come back to life, but only if those teammates are still alive will he actually hold a chance. The boat is down. The Vikings are going to be stunned out for a little bit here, and it looks like they are going to drop as well. The tribute is going to go to Cloud9 Vortex, and they don't drop a single team member in this late game fight.
And this is just absolutely devastating for PPST. If Cloud9 Vortex, even 1 or 2 more pickups, perhaps they don't even need it. There's very little to stop them from just marching up to the core now, with 3 of the players mostly out of commission.
The blink forward!
Oh boy, well, 4 players out of commission now.
Yeah, this is actually going from bad to worse very quickly for Pool Plato Tangos. We actually still have also some pings on that core. Remember, that is a catapult lane. It is starting to put up a little bit of pressure. This is the only gate left for PPST. They're the only ones. This is the only bastion of defense. It's the only keep still left up. The catapults are really starting to push forward. Look at those promoted catapults. They are such huge hulking beasts.
They are so strong for core as the rest of Cloud9 Vortex pushes through the center position. Tazza will now be rejoining them, and still Sylvanas is out of the picture for this fight. She's got another 25 seconds before she's going to spawn, so they're missing a little bit of that extra damage, those silences that they can throw in against Cloud9 Vortex.
So I'm kind of curious, Cloud9's not really going for the kill shot. They're kind of chipping away here at that keep. I'm kind of curious, are they going to try to take a fight and then advance? Will they get this keep and retreat, look for a boss? The timers are possibly actually going to be very favorable for that, but so far, pretty much a lack of aggression, despite the fact that they do have that numbers advantage.
You got to imagine this is the elimination round. All they need to do is mess up once, and this could completely swing the other way with how long the death timers are, especially if it's a full team wipe. So they back up. We're getting closer and closer looking at those tributes. We see the pings towards the mercenary camps in the northeast. They want to secure as many objectives as possible.
Yep, so once again, we've seen the split repeatedly throughout this match. They go into the bottom lane for those Siege Giants, and to the top, it's going to be those Bruisers. And since there's nobody on the map, look at what PPST thinks. They think that there's going to be a boss attempt, so they're in there, they're thinking about it, then they get shown, and they don't really know what they're doing. They're a little confused. I don't think they really have a solid plan in terms of this defense. They see Bobby Hankill all by himself, but there's no collapse coming down.
Yeah, with the Oracle, Bobby Hankill can see, he's like, well, no one's going to collapse on me, so that's nice, as Cloud9 Vortex gets to work on that boss in the northeast once again, and they're just, racking up all of the mercenary camps that they can manage to grab, and Tazza still just chilling by himself in the south.
And what a feint. I mean, like, we had the idea. PPST had the right idea that that boss was going to be taken, but Bobby Hankill shows himself, and they're like, all right, they're not up there. So let's go down here. Let's find Bobby Hankill. He's going to try to get on this point, but will that be long enough? He's just... Actually, they're going to go for the core with that boss. It doesn't even matter what Bobby Hankill takes home here. He is tying them up so they cannot defend. You can't back. You can't get away. And the more damage he does, it means that they're not there for the defense on the core. And here comes that boss marching down.
I mean, this is risky business here. Everything focused on the core right now for Cloud9 Vortex. If they were to get wiped here, things could turn around catastrophically for them. They're descending upon it. The rest of PPST has shown up to do their best to defend, but they will be able to pick it off. And with that advance, eliminating Plato Tangos from the Heroes of the Storm North America June Open.
It looks like...